Have you ever stood at the foot of a massive, unyielding mountain and suddenly realized it isn't even real? Watch these first, cold lines form on the canvas. They're just simple strokes of blue, but in our lives, they represent the towering walls we build against ourselves. In her book, The Mountain Is You, Brianna Wiest points out a chilling truth. The mountain blocking your path isn't your circumstances. It isn't other people. It's you. It's the quiet art of self-sabotage. We take the colors of our past traumas, our deepest, unsaid fears, and we paint them into an insurmountable obstacle. But why? Why do we lock ourselves in this freezing landscape of our own making? Why do we choose the familiar comfort of being stuck over the terrifying freedom of the climb? The answer might just change the way you look at your own reflection. As these clouds gather, thick and heavy across the canvas, they are so much like the excuses we tell ourselves. I'm not ready yet. Maybe tomorrow. I'm just not good enough. They drift in, quietly obscuring the truth. And beneath that haze, the mountain begins to take its true form. Solid, intimidating, unforgiving. We layer it with our own doubts, stroke by stroke, until we completely convince ourselves that it cannot be moved. Look closely at the water taking shape here. It's a perfect, still mirror. And mirrors, they reflect everything, even the parts of ourselves we try so desperately to hide. That heavy procrastination right when you're about to reach a goal. The sudden urge to push someone away the moment they get too close to your heart. We build this freezing, towering mountain out of our oldest wounds. It's a bitter irony, isn't it? We would rather endure the familiar, aching pain of the present than face the absolute uncertainty of change. We become so used to the cold that the thought of stepping into the sunlight actually terrifies us. Look at these distant trees taking root, deep in the background. They don't fight the imposing mountain. They just quietly, intentionally grow. Brianna Wiest shares something incredibly liberating about this. That self-sabotage we talked about earlier, it isn't actually your enemy. It was a shield. It was a brilliant coping mechanism your mind created to protect you from getting hurt again. It did its job well, keeping you safe in the shadows. But watch as the solid banks begin to form around the water now. A new foundation is being laid. You are no longer that vulnerable version of yourself who needed to hide behind the cold rock. You have survived, and you are strong enough now to gently put the shield down. As we bring these closer trees into focus, notice the intricate details, the texture of the bark, the reach of the branches. Healing is exactly like this. It requires you to be fully present in the small, deliberate details of building a new life. It's the profound realization that your trauma wasn't your fault, but your healing is entirely your responsibility. You cannot physically move the mountain, but you can absolutely transform the person who is walking upon it. Watch as the brush begins to shape the leaves, layering the foliage and these dense bushes in the foreground. Notice how much patience this takes. Building a forest, just like building a new version of yourself, doesn't happen in a single, magical moment. In her book, Brianna reminds us that doing the inner work is a daily practice. It's in the small, repetitive strokes. Choosing to respond differently to an old trigger. Choosing to set a healthy boundary, even when your voice shakes. Slowly, stroke by stroke, the colors in the foreground become clearer, bolder. You are literally painting over your old habits. When you finally stop exhausting yourself by fighting your own shadow, the vibrant parts of your soul finally have the space to breathe. Look at the life returning to this landscape. The mountain is still there, yes, but it no longer dictates the entire scenery. You have grown a living, breathing forest around it. Look at the water now. It's no longer just a dark mirror reflecting our fears. It reflects the life, the vibrant growth we've just built. Notice these gentle ripples forming on the surface. In Brianna's words, this is the moment of true clarity. When you finally release the urge to sabotage your own happiness, your mind becomes exactly like this clear water. Still, but deeply alive. And watch these rocks forming along the edge. Solid, grounded. They are your new boundaries, the firm foundation of someone who finally knows their own worth. The reflection you see now is no longer the trauma of the past. It's the quiet, undeniable strength of someone who conquered their own mountain. Watch these final details. The soft grass, the small grounded stones right here in the foreground. They remind us that the climbing of a massive mountain always begins right where your feet are, in the small, quiet choices of today. If you are tired of standing in the shadow of your own self-doubt, if you are truly ready to stop fighting yourself, I highly recommend reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. I've left a path to it right down in the description below. If this journey brought you a moment of peace today, consider subscribing to Painted Wisdom. Until next time, remember, you are not the mountain. You are the one who climbs it.